What is something you have a Pavlovian response to? Over a few months, I taught my cat to ring a bell if he wants to go outside. Every time I heard the bell ring, I would stand up, say good boy, and open the door. Yesterday I realized I have trained myself to stand up whenever I hear a bell. My alarm clock sound was a recording of some birds chirping. I thought it would make waking up feel more pleasant and natural. Instead, I just get irrationally pee off whenever I hear birds chirping now. Totally have to be careful choosing an alarm noise. The Skype ringtone. I work from home, so Skype is the usual way for us to all keep in touch. Now when I hear the Skype ringtone on a TV show, my mind immediately prepares for work mode. Mine is the opposite. I work and study with Skype open and my boyfriend lives pretty far away from me, so when I hear that sound I get all warm and fuzzy inside. Whenever I hear my full first name I instantly think of what I could have done wrong. No one normally calls me by my name, only by a short form, and whenever I hear my alarm sound, my head feels like it's the worst thing in my life and I feel tired. That's why I change my alarm at least once a month. I have the exact same thing with my full name. My partner sometimes says it and I immediately get flustered and defensive. He just laughs at me now. The sound of minor car accidents. About a decade ago, I worked from home for 3 years. About 4 days a week, always between 11 AM and 1 PM. There would be a minor fender bender at the intersection near my house. My old windows were single pane and sound went right through them, so I'd always hear it and go out on my front porch to take a look and see if I should call the fire department, which is just a couple hundred feet away. Out of hundreds of car accidents at that intersection, only 4 needed any kind of medical intervention, and none were serious. Anyway, after verifying it was no big deal, I'd usually look at the time and say to myself, hey, it's lunchtime. This is probably a good time to take a break. I no longer work from home, and a couple years ago we put soundproofing windows in. Remember, fire station a few hundred feet away. So, while the city still refuses to put a light at that intersection, I am rarely home when accidents happen, and when they do, I rarely hear anything now. This summer, it was pretty mild here, and one Saturday I had the windows open and was just sitting in the living room watching TV, when I heard the distinct squeal of brakes followed by the signature crunch of someone's ruined bumper, and just like I used to, I went out and made sure it was no big deal, then immediately called out to my 5-year-old son that it was time for lunch. His response was, "Dad, lunch was hours ago." TLDR. I learned this summer that when I hear a car accident, I want lunch. That TLDR makes it seem like you're cannibal. When the doorbell rings, I brace myself for my dog to start raising heck. That be reverse Pavloved me. Well played, Sadie. Well played. One of our dogs usually barks if there is any kind of doorbell in a commercial or on a TV show. Even if the one on TV doesn't sound like our doorbell. That dog is a sweetie, but he's quite derpy. When I was growing up my family was fairly poor. We had rice with every single meal every single day, and we also had farmer vision. That's what we called it when you only got the basic channels on TV. Every day at 5 o'clock my mom would start making supper during Jeopardy, and the rice would be cooking around the time Final Jeopardy came on. To this day I can't smell rice without hearing the Final Jeopardy theme song in my head, and I can't hear the Final Jeopardy theme song without smelling rice. This is a really interesting question. I hope it gets a lot of attention. Whenever I hear the Golden Girls theme song I get hungry because it was always on when my mom made dinner. It even works if someone sings it. The smell of diesel fuel brings a smile to my face. I adore field trips when I was in school, and diesel fuel reminds me of buses and field trips and long trips with the band. Fun times equals diesel fuel. Not mine, but my wife's. When she smells coconut oil or any type of sunscreen she starts to think of Christmas. Side effect of being Australian. When I was drinking Baja Blast out of the can over the summer I could instantly taste Taco Bell, even though I hadn't been in weeks. Those were so disappointing. The fountain version is so much better. I used to be at attention at all times while I was living at my parents' house. I lived downstairs, so I'd just wait for the door to open, That was my cue to turn off my monitor and look like I was cleaning or doing something other than using my computer. I had about 37 seconds before he shuffled around the corner to my room and opened the door without knocking. My dad would come down at least once a day to tell me how I was wasting my time and how crappy it was that I didn't come up and tell them all about my life every night. Long story, really. Even when I go visit, I hear the basement door open when they call up my sister who took my old room, and the adrenaline pumps hard for a few seconds before I realize that I have my own house, and then I have to take a few more seconds to breathe. Whenever I hear someone say the greater good, I always repeat it. It's not a conscious thing. I've watched Hot Fuzz way too many times. When I first played Oblivion, I was drinking a peace tea. Apparently I did this often because every time I drink peace tea I just immediately remember a few scenes of me plating Tez Oblivion. I love it though, it brings back memories that I can't pull up on command. Stop right there, tea drinking scum. For me it's when I hear something that sounds like Lucy. In my Latin class we choose Latin nicknames, and I chose Lucius, don't remember why, that was a while ago. In the class we have to translate these passages from the text and she chooses people to read and translate. When she chooses people she calls them by the vocative form of their name. So for Lucius it's Lucy, pronounced Lukey. I didn't exactly always have my translation ready, and almost always whenever she'd call on me I'd be not paying attention and go all like wait what, and it made me super anxious all the time. These days because it's a harder class I do prepare my things, but whenever she calls me I still get that whoa WTF feeling. Here's where it gets Pavlovian however. I love the show Modern Family, and I'll usually have it on while I'm redditing or doing other stuff. In the show, Claire sometimes refers to Luke as Lukey. The other day I was just on here and had the show on in the background when suddenly my ears picked up Julie Bowen saying Lukey, and I was like oh crap, the translation. Oh wait. Phew. Typical Malfoy, never prepared for class. I set an alarm so I know when to take my birth control, and each time my alarm goes I immediately start gathering saliva in my mouth so the pill goes down easily. This now happens whenever I hear that alarm even if I don't have the pill on me. My alarm is a duck quacking, so when I come across an actual duck quacking in real life I have a mini freak out that I need to take my birth control. I accidentally conditioned my husband to get an erection when I cry. Before I was diagnosed as bipolar I would have random tantrums and screaming fits, usually over nothing. Being the amazing man he is, my husband would comfort me, calm me down, and just in general make me feel better. After I felt better and being so close to him, I would want sex. So within a couple months he was getting an erection every single time I cried. This sounds like the first paragraph of a truly awful true story book which women buy to make themselves cry. Anytime C brought up, my nose instinctively waters and begins to drip. I haven't done coke in 14 years. Also, doing coke doesn't make your nose run either. If I even think about C I do an involuntary sniff. Even did it while writing this. A lot of my early sexual experiences occurred in a basement. I am aware this sounds dark, but it was all perfectly consensual. So now whenever I smell that musty, damp basement cellar smell I get aroused. You would love Comic Con. Fake strawberry smell gives me a chubby. One summer, many moons ago, I had the typical teenage summer camp relationship. Stay at a branch campus camp, not camp crap in the woods. You know the ones. Every single milestone of a relationship is condensed in time and multiplied in irrational responses. We got to the teenage puppy love stage by day 3 and our group had the day off to shop at the local boardwalk. So we did what we thought you were supposed to. We made out in any nook, cranny, and slightly out of sight place we could. We also made the pseudo-serious offers to buy jewelry and such. In one shop she decided she wanted a perfume. She had not been the perfume wearing girl before this, but wanted to smell good for me. I hate most perfume smells. I like fruit though, so she leaned towards fruit and vanilla type smells. Between the hormones, relatively cool day, and her in general, by the time she came to the strawberry smell I was ready to take both of our virginities right in the shop. So, I did the obligatory sniff, actually could stand it, and proceeded to make for second base amongst the deep and passionate kisses. She smiled and laughed, saying something along the lines of "I guess you really like this one," and tossed me out before I could steal the base. That night was the first night I slept with a girl. Snores and blanket stealing, not bang, bang, bangity bang, and it was an awesome roller coaster of strawberry scented teenage magic. From fighting to kissing, it was the kind of night you were supposed to have at summer camp. The smell of that sweet, almost sickening but not quite, boardwalk perfume is the smell that triggers the old teenage passion. Much like myself in that last innocent summer, the smell was the strong pure one before the fermentation began. 15 or so years later, I have old notes in a box of that sort of thing. That smell gives me wood. Dear, that last sentence is adorable. When I was little, my dad was super serious about all of us spending most of Saturday cleaning the house. He would get to the point of serious verbal abuse if we didn't move fast enough or quit cleaning early, if that makes any sense. But when he started cleaning, he would turn on the radio and started with the vacuum. So throughout my childhood, anywhere I went and someone turned on the radio with a vacuum and I was being idle at the time, I would get very nervous and restless. I couldn't stay still. I guess because if my dad saw us not doing something while he was vacuuming, he would flip. The radio doesn't freak me out anymore, probably because I listen to it while driving, but vacuums still make me nervous if I'm not the one using it. When I was in my early adolescence, I had an American flag hanging above my computer. Now for some reason I find patriotism sexy. I can imagine the CIA experimenting with this on teenagers to increase patriotism. Every time I turn on the vacuum cleaner, my dog runs up to it, barks and bites at it for around 30 seconds, then backs away and allows me to vacuum the house. The other day, one of the custodians at work turned on a vacuum cleaner, and I caught myself bracing for an onslaught of corgi barking. I've said this before, but it's as troubling as it is true. Every time someone mentions Pavlov, I salivate. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point. But I think it started out by knowing Pavlov's experiments were about causing salivation, which made me become aware of my own saliva, kind of like breathing, blinking and other people's ears. Sorry guys, I had to bring those topics up. So I have a Pavlovian response to Pavlov, and Pavlovian response is identified as such. Honestly, it could be worse. Anytime I hear X be with you, such as may the force be with you, I reply and also with you. Perks of growing up Lutheran. Whenever I go take a shower, or think about going to take a shower, I need to crap. Side effect of conditioning myself to only go shower after taking a crap. It's pretty convenient though. In college, my two psychology major roommates conditioned me to drool for Taco Bell every time I heard the bell. The main problem for me was they would play the bell tone after the Taco Bell had closed. Buttholes. I tend to skip over Taco Bell ads now. In 2009 to 2010, my phone's alarm clock used to blast Katy Perry's Hot and Cold. I used to wake up to that song every day during those 2 years. Now, if I hear it on the radio or anywhere else, I get the urge to extend my arm and turn off that horribly catchy song. And now I'm hearing it. Maybe now I read it every time I hear it. I was spanking the monkey in the bathroom after taking a good dump and flushing. Some smell still lingered as this became a nightly routine. Now whenever I fart I get a raging hard on. This comment made me scroll all the way down until your comment was no longer visible, just so that I didn't accidentally read it again. Birth control pills. I swallow them without water, using the force of my own saliva. So just thinking about the pill makes me salivate. My mouth is so wet right now. Back in the days of AOL and dial-up, I used to pass the time while the computer connected to the internet by making rubber band balls out of the bag of rubber bands in my dad's desk drawer. To this day, when I hear the dial-up tone, I smell rubber bands. I was in a terribly abusive relationship and had a Nokia at the time. Now, whenever I hear a Nokia message tone, my heart races and I get cold sweats in anticipation for the turmoil the bee is about to subject me to, even though it ended a decade ago. Pavlov, Pavlov, that rings a bell. God, I'm so hungry right now. I can't walk into my friend's house without craving soda and breakfast food. We used to watch TV and hang out together doing nothing on his couch a few days a week and I'd just eat out of his freezer. I can eat the biggest meal of my life, walk into his house, and the smell will make me want Dr. Pepper and Eggo waffles. Well then, it boggles my mind that this comment would ever be downvoted by anybody, but I'm sorry to have offended. Frick you Dr. Pepper and Eggo waffles eating piece of crap. I'm a teacher. My dad was a teacher. I had my dad as a teacher when I was in grade school. Whenever anyone would say Mr. Wacker, I have a question, he'd reply with I have an answer. Let's see if they match. I do the same thing to my students now too. I didn't notice I would respond that way until my wife said to me last week I have a question and I immediately responded without thinking with I have an answer. Let's see if they match. She laughed. Sex happened. I have a friend who started using Lubriderm to masturbate with when he was 11. We are 30 now and he still has the same routine. When he was 18 he told me that whenever he smells Lubriderm, even if it is because some old grandma in front of him in line at the grocery store wearing it, he instantly get an uncontrollable erection. I've thought about using this to prank him, but I really don't want to be the cause of my friend's erection. I broke my arm very badly. They couldn't even fully cast it at first because it was such a swollen mess, so there was a support strip of plaster and some wrapping. I also couldn't lie down as the support was on the bottom of my arm, like an L, and my arm was virtually in two pieces. If I reclined, the bottom part of my arm would just fall off the stump attached to my shoulder. I stayed at my mom's house during this time and for days I sat upright in a chair, on Vicodin, with MTV on. Vicodin makes me super nauseated. MTV was playing reruns of Speed Racer and it seemed every time I woke up the theme song was playing, and then I would vomit into the bucket next to me. I remember those days as a haze of early anime and barfing. The Speed Racer theme song still makes me sick to my stomach years and years later. The sound of a key in a front door takes me right back to the extremely high stress relationship I was in with a girl who always had big, serious issues. I almost never got any time to myself, so when I was alone in the house I'd spend the time playing a game and just losing myself for a while. The noise of the key in the door immediately brought all of the thoughts pounding through my head of all the things that I should have been doing while she was out because I knew I was about to be pulled into a full-scale all-night argument and I needed to have myself covered. I've been single and living alone since May, but a good friend of mine has a key for emergencies and came over for dinner the other night. I told her to let herself in. Sound of the key in the door made my heart pound all over again. My bottle opener plays my Ayla Mater's fight song. I've been using it enough that every time I hear it, I get thirsty for beer. I had a tendency, as a kid, of letting my glasses slip down so I end up peering over them. My father would regularly remind me to push up my glasses by rubbing his index finger up the brim of his nose in a push up your glasses kinda motion. Now, when my SO wants to bug me, she rubs the brim of her nose the same way he did. Even if I'm not wearing my glasses, my nose starts to itch until I at least mime fixing my glasses. Even just writing this, I've adjusted my glasses 4 times. Spicy food, particularly the smell of buffalo chicken sauce, will make my mouth water dramatically. Even as I type this, I had to swallow from excess of saliva. Buffalo wings are one of my favorite foods, and I'll be damned if there isn't a single place in the whole of the great Boston area that makes competent buffalo wings. Only dang thing I miss about living in Rochester, NY. As an addict, the sound of pills in a bottle or the sight of a needle being used gives me a rush even though I have been clean for some time. Whenever I get home from school, I instinctively duck immediately after opening my front door, after years of getting tackled by my best friend Tiger. Math makes me hungry. All throughout high school, by sheer coincidence, I had math the period before lunch. So sometime between 11 and noon, my stomach would start to rumble when I was learning about differentials and formulas, and it would soon be rewarded. As I started college, statistics was my last class of the afternoon, and I usually stopped for a snack in the way home. And now today, every time I figure out my bills, rent and taxes, my belly gets a little excited. Is that a calculator? Cool. You know what sounds good right now? Nachos. The smell of paint and Kraft mac and cheese. When dad would be painting the house he would always make mac and cheese. Mom was always out of the house when he would paint, so I guess that's the best meal he could make. My dad would always tickle me until I made a funny sound. So now as soon as someone touches my sides I'll make a noise like a happy walrus or shriek like someone showed a fennec fox the food it likes most. People take advantage of this all the time. I get an erection every time I hear Fran Drescher's voice or obnoxious laugh. I despise Fran Drescher and her voice though, so it's kind of awkward. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.